Hi, Dr. Guirguis. Thanks so much for jumping on the call today.
Sure, Keaton. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, thanks for being here. So we've been working together for about a year. Dr. Guirguis is based out of Las Vegas, Nevada, and he runs a practice called Mountain View Orthodontics. Why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself, personally, your family, where you went to school, and then your practice as well, how long you've been in business, and when did you start?
Yeah, definitely. So I was born and raised in Egypt, but grew up in Las Vegas since elementary school, basically. So I've kind of called this home.
Yeah,
Um, I'm married. My wife is also a dentist. We met in dental school here in Vegas.
nice.
Got two little ones, 6-year-old and a 4-year-old. So it's a party.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I did my dental training here in Vegas and then did my specialty ortho training in San Francisco. Practiced out in California for a little bit, and then relocated back to Vegas. Bought a practice in 2015 that was owned by a doctor who was working part time, was living in LA and kind of commuting,
Mm,
and so he wasn't wanting to keep making that trip anymore. So he ended up transitioning out, and I took over the practice and renamed it, and here we are, six
nice.
years going strong. Yeah.
And your wife, does she own her own practice as well?
So she is the general dentistry as an associate for about 7 years, and then now she's specializing in pediatrics. So that'll be her next step. So she kind of took a step back and focusing on kids dentistry over adults now.
Well, that's perfect for your kids.
Yeah, yeah,
Free dental treatment their whole life.
that's right.
That's great. Um, cool, awesome. So tell me, you bought the practice in 2015. Tell us about how you kind of got started in marketing, and walk us from like 2015 to 2020 when we started talking. Then we'll transition to kind of how the last year's gone.
Yeah. So at the time I took over the practice, like I mentioned, the other doctor it was a satellite practice for him, meaning he didn't primarily practice out of here.
Yeah.
And so he was seeing patients like 4 days a month. It was a really small practice, and
Mhm.
I had the mindset of like, I'm from Las Vegas. I know all these doctors here. I went to school here. I grew up here.
Nice.
I'll just show up and they'll be busy, and
Mhm.
I think, you learn things the hard way, but having a practice that doesn't have much momentum and much of a footprint, is a challenge. And so when my first year, I just showed up, started treating patients. I'm like, oh, the phones are going to ring. That's how it works. Right. And then you kind of step back and you're like, all right, well, it's not really what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
And then so we started getting more in the community and kind of talking more with the dentist and kind of establishing those relationships, and slowly started to kind of ramp things up. And then didn't do a lot of online marketing, as far as non-organic. Organic, we post things and try to be active on social media. And, I think it's big these days. But until we started working together last year, that was the first time we really ventured out to try, online marketing and stuff. And I think it's the biggest thing I think I've seen is just people know who we are. Like, we're kind of, your face pops up everywhere. And so my neighbor's like, yeah, I saw your Facebook, and so that's pretty cool. And I think it's just one of those where people have to know you're there to come to you. I mean, you build your reputation, but the more they kind of see you, I think it's pretty powerful.
Yeah, it's so true. Another interview we just did, Dr. Mackenzie out in Canada. She says there's just these huge orthodontists that have been around for years, and she's kind of this smaller startup.
Mhm.
And once we started running ads, like everybody recognized her, which is like the
Yeah.
brand recognition, although it's not as measurable as like, okay, how many did you start this month? It's
Yeah.
huge, and it's something that's going to compound over 10, 20 years instead of
Yeah.
just being like, okay, we got more revenue this month, but are we getting a foothold in this market where we're going to be able
Yeah.
to sell down the line, or bring in patients just because they're like, oh, I need braces. The obvious choice is Mountain View Orthodontics because I see
Yeah.
their ads all the time.
Yeah.
That's really cool. But as far as before we started working together, it was just relationships, just talking to dentists and kind of in the community there.
Yeah, I mean, we dabbled in Google Ads, things. I always kind of did it myself, and so just
Mhm.
sort of blindly throwing ideas out there and seeing what happens, and not tracking that stuff as well. It's just kind of hard to monitor when it's not organized. But I mean, we did have a lot of patients, and they would, word of mouth is big, and that's still a really big part of our practice. I think when
Sure.
you treat people right, send their friends and family, and then we have dentists that we have relationships with that we work together. But then there's the random, like, I found you on Google, and we try to build our online reputation, reviews, and I think all that, it's all, everything counts. It's all
Yeah.
important, but
So true.
never any direct, marketing, putting ourselves out there for patients to see us.
Yeah. So then how did we remind me how we originally came in contact? I messaged you, right?
Yeah, I think and it's funny because I get messages like once a week from someone like, "Hey, I work with," and tonight. And my thing is like, dude, I'll talk to anybody because
Yeah.
everyone's just hustling, they're doing their thing, and
Yeah.
it's like the same thing. If people don't know you, they don't know what you're capable of, and so I'll take a call with anybody.
Mhm.
And so we just started talking, and for me, it was just getting a good vibe. Like I think we kind of hit it off pretty good. It's easy to talk to, and kind of told you what my vision is, and and I felt comfortable. So we, and nothing to lose. You just try it, and
Yeah.
I think it's been a pretty good relationship. So
Oh, definitely, definitely. You're definitely like one of the most easiest clients we've ever had to work with because you
I
like
don't complain too
A,
much.
because you know what you want.
Yeah,
You tell us, and so we do it. And there's other doctors who it's just difficult because they expect the world, but they don't really know how to get there, what they want to do to get there. So
yeah,
I've loved that about our relationship. There's like, hey, get this done, and we get it done, and we're all happy. So
yeah.
so that it was just kind of the vibe. Then was there anything specific about what we talked about that made you feel like we were the right choice over anybody else?
I mean, I think this is more of like personally how I interact with people. I've talked to other people that like I know the sales pitch and the close is coming. And I mean, I used to work in sales. Like everything you do is sales, even if it's healthcare. Like
Yeah.
in the day, you have a product, someone's a buyer for your product. But I don't like the whole like, well, if you start today, we do this, and then if you start in the next 10 minutes, like it's not how I operate. I've never wanted to be like that's just on a personal note. Aside from like your actual content and value that you bring, but just like I like to process things. I don't like to make rash, especially in business. Like it's not when you run a business, you can't just be like, "Oh, I'll just try it. Let's just go." Like
Yeah.
that's not how I roll. So that was important to me. This is like on a relationship level.
Love it.
Um, but I mean, I think your guys' approach is cool. I see a lot of ads, and a lot of times you just scroll through it. And so I think something engaging, like the calculator idea, I think was cool. And
Mhm.
people want to kind of play around with numbers, and that's something more engaging. People just want to play with it and see. And so even if it means someone clicks on it, doesn't go any further, when they see it 10 more times the next month, then they might be like, well, let me just go through it. And so I think people seeing it and coming back through, even if it didn't fully click through and stuff. And I mean, I think that I've seen it. So I think it's good. It's working.
Yeah. And I was looking at numbers right before this call. So since the beginning of the year, we've had over 602 people go through, and 84 of them have completed it. But there's
Yeah.
526 people in there who are going to get retargeted by the ad because
Yeah.
they did it. And then when it is time for them, because only 3% of any given market is ready to buy, they're going to come to you and they're going to be like, oh yeah, I messaged someone a while ago, let me search for that orthodontics in my messenger inbox, and they find you, and then they continue from there.
Yeah. This is just a fun story. I had a patient call our office, and she's like, "Hey, I'm scheduled to get braces tomorrow at this other office.
Mm-hmm.
But I saw your ad pop up, and I just was curious, like what you guys are all about and stuff." And it turns out a good friend of mine had liked our ad. He just saw it, sponsored post popped up on his feed. He liked it just because it's me, and he's supporting a friend.
Yeah.
And then he's a mutual friend of that patient, and so he's like the link between us. And so when I'm like, how'd you like, what made you, try to like change it up the day before you're supposed to get your braces on? And she's like, well, I saw that my friend liked your post, so I figured you were legit because he knows you. And so she came in and she started treatment with us, and just funny how that. So that's
Yeah.
not even related to her clicking on our ad. It's just she saw someone like our ad that she knows. So that's what
Yeah.
I'm saying. Like when I say my neighbors and friends and family like see the post and stuff, and they're all liking it and sharing it. I mean, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I love like the comments can just be your own social proof. I have a doctor
Mm-hmm.
out here in Utah that everybody comments like, oh, Dr. Thompson's my favorite.
Yeah,
He's so cool. And then you're probably getting similar things on your
yeah,
ad.
yeah.
When people see that, it's just like, oh, this guy's legit. Let's do it. Wow, what a
Mm-hmm.
story with you just snatched that
Isn't
one.
that random?
It's like a stuff in basketball. You just stole it and went
Yeah,
in.
I was just like, okay, come on in, we'll take care of you.
I love it. Um, and so when have you noticed like ebbs and flows, and was it like right off the bat things were really strong and then it stopped a little bit, or it was slower when you started and now it's ramped up?
We started at a weird time. We started mid-February, February
Right.
14th, I think, and then we closed our office down like less than 4 weeks later.
Yeah.
But it actually, I think people were stuck at home, and so the internet became more powerful than it already is. And
Yeah.
so I think that presence on the internet, people kind of seeing us, and they're sitting around like, well, what can I think about? I got nothing to do. Oh,
Hmm.
what about my teeth? Like this ad looks cool. So we actually got a lot of pent up demand. We started dabbling with virtual consults during the time we were shut down, and we still do that a little bit. I prefer in the office to get that full experience, but
Hmm.
um, we were doing virtual consults while the office was shut down. You know, I got the kids playing outside, like playing soccer in the backyard, screaming. I'm like over here talking to a new patient, and but so I mean, I thought it's been pretty steady for us. Every once in a while we'll get a lull, and I think that's why you guys are pretty good about, you know, we kind of like circle back and you guys touch base a lot, and so we'll change the image up or change the approach, and we've tried some different stuff, and you know, some things work better than others, but it's good to kind of constantly evolve and change, even if it's just the image or the verbiage, so it's something new to catch attention. And so I think we've been pretty steady overall.
Yeah, it's awesome to hear, and it's so true that I mean, when COVID hit, like a month after we started working, right? I remember it was March 15th, and our billing cycle is like we bill a lot on the 1st and 15th. So we got all this revenue on the 15th, and then the 17th is when everybody shut down, or something like that. It was the 18th. Yeah. And I was sure that I was just doomed. I was like, it's over. And then everybody was holding their breath, and then a week later, like everything was fine. It was actually better because so many people were spending more time online.
Totally. You got to ride it out, get past that first bump of fear, and then just keep going.
And here we are a year later, right? And it's still working. So cool. So cool. And then what have you, like I remember you filmed a testimonial video for us a few months after we started working. You said they're really good at tracking everything. What have you enjoyed about the tracking we've done? And then have you done your own tracking when it comes to ads, or have you just kind of felt like, yeah, this is really working because of everything that's going on?
I mean, I have, like, I track where consults are coming from and conversion percentage of different sources and stuff, just like my OCD, like, number stuff. So I like that you guys have the Google sheet, and I can just do a quick summary, and you guys will send me weekly updates, like, hey, you had this many click-throughs and stuff. But that's been the biggest thing. I mean, I think we converted at a really high rate the first year. I think it's, you know, normalized a little bit now. We were converting probably 60% of people that showed up, which I think is high for cold leads. And now we're closer to, you know, 30 to 40, 35, 40, depending on, which is, you know, the volume is still good, so it's not bad. And so I think that sounds more normal because, you know, Facebook is not, people aren't searching for ortho on their newsfeed and pop. So it's a little different than when someone's looking for something. But it's been good to be able to track that stuff. Just like, I mean, that's the whole thing with when you're investing in something, you want to know the ROI and kind of what you're getting.
And do you have, sorry, a couple questions. The first one was, you said you track conversion rates from different sources, right? So what have you noticed? Do you have the numbers from Facebook on you right now?
I can in about 30 seconds. Let's see.
Yeah, let's check them out.
Yeah, I do. So this year we've actually had in the office 24 patients, and then 9 of them have actually started treatment. So I mean, averaging about, you know, 3 starts a month or so. And then last year was right around the same average, but the conversion was a little bit higher. We didn't see quite, so we're seeing more volume of patients now. Then we've gotten pretty good at, you know, streamlining the leads and calling and following up and everything. That's a big part of it. People are ready to go when they're clicking on it. So we've been pretty good about the follow-up.
Yeah, that's kind of the next thing I want to dive into. But one other question before we do, tell me about consult. Like, are you double booking the consults because so many people are no-showing? Have you found anything that's been helpful in not getting them to no-show, or do you just kind of accept that risk and run with it?
You know, I think every market's different. I saw another orthodontist was posting on a thread the other day, or did like a podcast about especially Facebook specific leads, and he made the comment that every market's different, and they were saying they had like 24 no-shows in 1 week of kinds of leads, and we haven't had that. I mean, there's days where it happens, but I think for the most part, people are coming through. We definitely have some. I think the biggest hurdles with those leads that are found through online marketing, one is commitment level, because some of them play around with it, and they've had some that, you know, no show, and then they like message us again the next week on the same messenger, and like, I want a consult. So we're like, hey, we just talked to you. Like, so I mean, I don't double book fully. I stagger a little bit, maybe just to kind of like half double book, if you will, on some of them. But then there's definitely been days where they all show up and they've been good patients and started treatment. And so I think the other kind of challenging part is some of them haven't been getting their dental stuff regularly, and so they see ortho and I want my teeth straight, but they need to get the dental side, and so those ones may actually show up. But I'm like, hey, I can't really, and you know, some, not all of them are like in horrible shape health wise, but some, you know, have been. But there's ones you're just, they need to get a cleaning and just make sure you're all good, and they do it and they follow through. And so for the most part, the ones that showed up have committed pretty well.
Nice.
Haven't been too hard to chase around and stuff.
And do you have them sign a contract, be like, hey, sign this down payment and then go get your dental work done? Or you just say, come back
We've
when you're
done
done?
We've done both. I think it depends on how, like, I think I kind of read it per patient too. I don't put anything in their mouth as far as starting treatment until they have the clearance from the dentist. But
Mhm.
there's the ones who are super motivated and we help them schedule a dental visit that don't have a dentist. We'll call someone while they're in the office that we have a relationship with and get them on the schedule. For those ones, we can at least get the records and stuff done and kind of get them planned.
Nice.
Um, then there's ones that I kind of feel like maybe need a lot of work or aren't as motivated, and I can tell that, and I don't want to waste their time or commit
Mhm.
their money and have to refund it or go through that whole thing. So
Yes.
I those I kind of feel like if they're into it and they want to do it, go take care of their health, which is the important part. Some don't see the priority, so they kind of just like, oh, I just want them straight, so I'm not going to go through all that. And then I know that's kind of the vibe. Then it's not worth it.
Yeah.
It's like a false commitment, false hope, or something.
Yes. I love this. Goes back to what you were saying earlier about our sales call, right? Like you're definitely not that, like, if you sign up today, we'll give you $1,000 off.
Yeah,
That just rubs you the wrong way. And I'm the exact same way. And that's why I don't do that.
yeah,
But it's so every time somebody asks me about sales, because I coach some, other agency owners or whoever, I'm just like, it's so case by case. You just have to
yeah.
read the situation. And that's why you're a human, not a robot. Like, I'm not going to
Right.
give you a script because it just depends on the person and you have to get to the root of why they're having that issue. But if you can read it and be like, nah, this just isn't the right thing for either of us, you're
Right.
going to be much better off just saying no to that case, because then you will have to refund the money and deal with that headache.
Yeah, I've learned that. I mean, you hear a lot of older orthodontists or more experienced orthodontists, like you'll never regret a case you didn't start.
Mm-hmm.
And man, there's been ones where like we dodged like that just wasn't, whether it's expectations or just a lot of different things. You don't want to have to. It's a relationship. It's a long one too, and so you gotta be, you can't be short sighted with the goals of like growing and getting starts and revenue and stuff because it's not worth it.
So true. Wow. Amazing. So let's go. Tell me about your follow-up process and what you found most effective and what were you doing at the start and now what you're doing.
Yeah, so I'm maybe hands on to a fault. We're a small operation. I have 5 team members, and so we're a
Okay.
smaller operation. So they probably hate me because I'm always like, "Hey, did you see that come in?" Because it all goes to my phone, and so if it's my day off or like
Yeah.
they'll tease me because it'll be like at 9 p.m. someone like chimes in and hits up the messenger, and I'll start replying to them and
Yeah.
just saying like, "Hey, let's get you scheduled." And so my goal is if we're in the office, if it's like during business hours, we'll just try to call them right away as soon as they, I always hear the numbers within an hour, but ideally within 30 minutes. And it's not
Mm,
always feasible, but if I see it pop up, a lot of times my team now are like, "Yep, you're talking about for Joseph. Yeah, I already called him." I'm like, "Okay, cool, you guys
yeah.
are good." Like, but then there's times that they didn't see it come through because they're not refreshing every 5 minutes and they're working, which is great because that's what they're there to do, right?
Yeah.
Um, and then if it's after hours, a lot of times I'll just engage with the patient,
Nice.
and I can't schedule physically on our schedule for my mobile app for our software, but I can see all the schedule and know when the openings are and everything. So a lot
Nice.
of times I'll find a spot for them and, give them an option and maybe get some of their information while we're right there. At least maybe rule out some stuff if they haven't been to a dentist, but at least like clear out what we do and stuff.
Yeah.
So that's been the biggest thing. And then if we don't get a hold of them, we'll leave a voicemail and we'll send an SMS like follow up. And then we have like a little pile of like the ones we didn't get a hold of, and we'll kind of circle back sometimes. And sometimes they'll just find us and they'll message us back after we let them go, and they'll come back a year later or a month later.
Yeah.
Um, that
Yeah.
retargeting stuff.
I think your story reminds me of this guy. He was running actually WhatsApp ads, not Messenger ads, but it's Facebook owns the whole ecosystem now.
Right.
It's going to WhatsApp, and he was like, I just respond between reps in the gym. Like I do, I'm bench pressing, and then I respond to a
Yeah.
client and like sign him up. And I think that's a huge benefit of this type of marketing, right? Because the dental stuff, like sure, other stuff can kind of happen that way because we're all so connected, but it's basically just like telling patients they can text you directly because you have it on your phone, but they're just messaging the business, right?
Yeah.
And because
And I
sorry, go ahead.
was gonna say I want to maximize my investment. Like we're spending effort
Yeah.
and money, your guys' time, your guys' fees for us to do all that, and we're spending
Mhm.
money on the ads. And so if you don't respond because it's 5:01 and you'll like, I'll call them tomorrow, they might have clicked
Mhm.
on 2 other ads by tomorrow. And so I just feel like one, I want to be present. I think it speaks something if we can respond quickly. Like people do want
Yes.
that. And then two, just when they're into it and they're excited about it, I think you have more of a chance to kind of get a chance. You just want to capture that lead and let them have experience your office by getting a hold of them and introducing yourself and kind of starting that rapport. So the sooner you can do it, the sooner their attention span is like still locked in with you.
Yes, exactly. I was just writing a script for a video yesterday. If somebody submits all that information, what do you think they're doing 2 minutes after they submitted it? Probably scrolling social media.
Yep.
So, continuing to do that. So if you follow up there, you strike while the iron's hot, your likelihood, some studies say it's like 10,000 times more likely for
Right.
that person to respond if you hit them up within those first 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And as the business owner, right, your employees, you can't really expect them to do that all after hours unless you're paying them somehow. But
Right.
it takes 2
Gotta
minutes
do it
to
yourself
respond.
sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, what was that last bit? I didn't hear it.
No, I just said you gotta do it yourself sometimes. It's
Yeah,
all
yeah,
good.
exactly. So I'm interested in your approach with your team. You said you have a small operation. Do you want to get bigger? Are you happy where it is now? Tell me
Yeah, I
about
mean,
that, and then also just your general like practice philosophy and like happiness, work-life balance, all that.
yeah, I mean, we're a small team. They all work really hard. But I mean, we're growing a lot. I think this year's been even another big leap in growth compared to what we thought was a big leap last year, even with COVID. And so I just got off the phone. I was doing a phone interview with another team member right
Mhm.
before our call. That's why I was like, I'm already on calls all day, so let's do it. But and so yeah, I mean, I think there's been days where we're getting a little bottlenecked just because we are, booked out on consults. Like we're
Nice.
seeing 8 to 12 patients a day on consults, and the days where all 10 or 12 show up, I mean, that gets a little crazy. So,
Mhm.
um, and so that's part of it. I think work-life balance, I'm a small business owner, like obviously, even though
Mhm.
it's, healthcare stuff. I try to disconnect when I'm at home and spend time with the kids, but there's always something to do. Like today's my day off. I'm not seeing patients today, but I've been in the office since 8:30 and I don't know when I'm
Yeah.
going to leave because I got things to do. So,
Mhm.
um, I think kind of work really hard now and try to get things automated a little bit more and, get team members that can help you carry things forward and get them in place. And that's kind of what we tried to do. And, I'm a little hands-on, like I said, and I'll scale back slowly, but I always find it funny when I'm like, hey, did you get that lead? And they're like, already called them and scheduled them. I'm like, okay, I need to chill out. But,
Yeah.
um,
No, I have the same problem. So funny. You feel like you need your hands in the pot the whole time, and
yeah,
they're
eventually they're like,
telling
dude, we got it. Chill
you.
out. I'm like, okay, cool. I know you guys got it. So,
Yeah. That's cool. So one thing that I've found in talking to a lot of orthodontists, something that is actually fairly common that we've tried to just nip in the bud recently is we'll get on the call with the doctor. They'll be like, yeah, that sounds amazing, like super cool, let's do it. And then we talk to the office manager and they're like, oh, the doctor signed up for another thing. What is this? Like, he didn't tell me
yeah.
anything. So, what do you do to maintain communication? And then also, how have you hired? Because it sounds like your team's tight knit and you enjoy all of the people on your team. That's
Yeah.
something I feel like a lot of offices just skip over because they're understaffed or they just can't find people that want to work for them that are going to be all stars. So, what have you found in that realm?
Definitely hard. I mean, I've been really fortunate. The people we have are really great. Some of them were referred by other people that I know, and that's usually a
Nice.
good way. We've gotten a few people, cold leads where we put out ads and stuff.
Mhm.
I think I just go off vibe. I mean, I think,
Yeah.
I'm happy that everyone, with the follow up for the marketing. I mean, I tell everyone they're all on board. They're excited to grow too, I think. And
Mhm.
they share in the accomplishment. I think that's a big part of it. It's not like that's an ownership thing that they take, which is big.
Yeah.
One of my team members has the app on her phone and she'll joke and be like, dude, go to bed. Cause I'll be texting someone at like 8, whatever. And so she'll call me out as a joke because she'll see the messages
Yeah.
pop up. And, but I appreciate that she sees them and she'll respond to people and she'll jump on there and do that, even if it's not in the office. And, I don't expect that. And I tell them like, hey, when you're not here, you don't have to do stuff. She has it more for follow up, but,
Yeah.
it just shows me that they care, which is great.
Yeah, amazing. I think it's all about that expectation up front, right? Because the interview you just had, if that person, if they get the wrong idea about what it's like to work at Mountain View Orthodontics from the interview, then the whole relationship's going to be shot. And so
Yeah.
I assume that you've done a great job of just kind of setting that expectation up front. And then is there anything you do, like, do you have weekly meetings? How do you get the whole team to stay on the same page?
I mean, we do quarterly meetings, which you always hear the stuff about how meetings are just a waste. I try not to do too
Oh,
much.
I'm
I end up just talking to people for an hour, and
so with
um,
you on that.
yeah. So I think with me, I just try to have open communication, and I tell them like I walk the walk with it. So like, I'm not going to tell you can talk to me about anything, and then you tell me to like bite your head off or like tell you
Mhm.
not to bring it up. So I try to do that if I ever feel like something needs to be addressed that's like maybe festering where I know it can lead to like some tension between people or something, my goal is to address it with everyone as a group, kind of in a mature way, in a constructive way.
Mhm.
I think it's like a family or relationship. There's going to be times where you don't agree on something, or someone doesn't like the way something was done or said. And so I think I tell them to approach me with anything, whether it's, hey, I don't like the way you do this, or could we try something new? Like, I'm always open to that. I always consider everything. I try to let them, kind of take ownership of stuff when they can. I think that goes a long way.
Nice.
But communication is the biggest one, just that we can talk about it and, be able to share all that stuff so no one's holding something in and then having an issue later.
They've got to feel safe with you as their boss, and then with
Yeah.
each other, because that's the, like, I'll, for confidentiality reasons, I know somebody who came out of an orthodontic practice just because it was so toxic, and all the girl, usually it's like the doctor's a guy, maybe the doctor's a girl, but it's all girls working there, and they're just like ready to bite each other's heads off all the time.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I think that's great. And from what my interaction with and my team's interaction with your team, like it's just been really positive. So great job there.
Yeah.
A couple more questions actually. First one is, are you doing any other type of marketing besides Facebook and Instagram?
No, as far as actual paid marketing, that's it. I've considered, dabbling back in Google ads, maybe on the more organized front with someone that manages them, just to kind of like, diversify a little bit. I think there's a different market from each way.
Yeah.
I think part of it too is based on the ROI. So as I see ROI, then it makes it, because one of my biggest hesitations is it's not cheap to do online. I mean, you can do it cheap maybe, but like,
Yeah.
you hire an agency, they have their fee for their time and what they're bringing forward. You have to pay for the ads and stuff. And so I think one of my biggest concerns was like, I'm always like asking during ROI, like, give me a number. And it's hard to, now I have some numbers because I have my own data. And
Yeah.
I've had companies say, like, yeah, you get a 2-3-fold ROI if we do a really good job. I'm like, well, I mean, that sounds okay, but that's a lot of money to like get a person to start every couple of months, or whatever. So people wanting $6,000 a month. I mean, it just sounded like crazy to me. So I'm more open to the idea now. So if I'm considering diversifying, trying some Google stuff just to kind of see how we do on that and kind of capture different audiences. But I kind of can see that as long as something is working, I'm always happy to invest and like try to grow. And we've had some growing pains, which I'm not complaining about. We've had, we've probably almost doubled what I was hoping for growth for consults and stuff this year, which we're trying to figure out how to do that and manage. That's why we're hiring more people, and it's a good problem to have. And so, we'll keep it going.
Nice. And what happened this year specifically? Do you think it's just a combination of a lot of things?
I mean, I think it's like a snowball effect with reputation. Is like, I think it took a couple of years. Like I mentioned, the first, he said, what do you do for marketing? The first year, I remember one of my team members who was like, hey, we need to get some more doctor referrals. Should I go take a basket or something to some offices? I'm like, yeah, here's some money. Go do that. Like zero plan, zero like strategy, And so I think, my son was born 3 days before I bought the practice. So it was like a lot going on. And then like you're overwhelmed taking over a practice. You don't know the people, the team, the patient. So the first couple of years kind of just put my head down and did ortho, which is great. That's the part I like to do the most. But then you have to look and be like, okay, I'm running a business. How do I strategize to grow and stuff? And so I think the last few years, we've really been more intentional with our community involvement, how we interact with our patients, how we set up relationships with doctors, and now the online marketing part of it. So, I think as that keeps going, like you kind of have to manage the growing pains and find the roadblocks and the little like bottlenecks and, smooth them out. But we've been managing it really well. Again, I'm not ever going to complain about growing too fast. We have to be able to sort of keep up with it, so you're not wasting opportunity, or not, losing that experience for the patient, or not having it be what it should be if you're doing it too fast.
It's so true. It's just like the small, simple things you do every single day. Focusing on this system, all right, like let's fix this and automate this so it works every single time. Like let's train this team member to know this. And when you're not having like tons of turnover with your team, that helps as well.
Totally.
And so yeah, that's awesome. Super happy for you. In 2021, I think, hopefully it's your year. Sounds like it is already.
Going good so far, man. Yeah.
Great. So then the last question here, if you could give yourself a piece of advice, like, your son was just born, you started your practice, what would you go tell yourself 6 years ago about running a practice, and what would you have told yourself to do in that first year?
I mean, you have to know what you're doing, so you got a lot to learn. I think a lot of it came with experience. So I think it's hard to sum it up into one thing, but I think just being proactive, you have to have a plan, right? It wasn't like I was completely like clueless, but there's just so much that goes into it, and how to establish those relationships, and how you have to have a vision, like a plan. And so I think with me, I was being more reactive in the beginning, like, oh, numbers are down, let's go do this. And then I think I was a lot more, and I think part of it with growth comes more revenue, which gives you more flexibility to do things, so that helps give you more comfort to do stuff. So that kind of comes with time too. But it was a weird situation because I bought a practice that already existed, but it was such a small, like skidding operation that I think trying to get control of that and turn it into what I wanted it to be first was part of the obstacle. It wasn't like a startup in the sense that I can kind of do everything from scratch exactly how I wanted. So I have to kind of change things versus build, which is a little bit challenging. But yeah, I would say just being proactive and having a plan. Like now I can literally go through and know, like, okay, what numbers do I want to hit? How do I do that? I mean, if I'm converting this many people, how many consults do I need? How do I get this many more consults a month? Like you have to have a plan. Okay, like how are you gonna back in the day be like, okay, we want to grow 10% this year. Like, cool, that's great. And then nothing happened. I'm like, oh, that didn't work, but I didn't do anything. I just made up a number. Now I can actually like have a plan about why I want to get to a certain number, how we're gonna get there, and then reverse engineer all the way down to what we do on the daily operation to achieve that.
Yeah, I love that. And I think for whoever's out there that this might be helpful to, I was talking to Dr. Tyler Coles, who runs 6-location practice in Arizona. And he was like, what you need to do, I was asking him about, because he used to run an agency, like, how do you motivate yourself? He's uber successful, like one of the most successful practices in Arizona.
I've heard him on the podcast before.
Yeah.
Sounds familiar. Yeah.
He's great. And he's just like, he's like whip smart. He knows every single number. He knows all their profitability. They like cut out Invisalign out of their practice because he was like, it's not as profitable as braces. And so we're just doing braces, and we can be more profitable with braces. So we're going to lower the price even more. And just that kind of stuff where he does really well. But he told me, like, set a goal for the amount of money you want to put in your bank account each month, and then work back from there. And that personalizes that growth, because 10% growth, like, great, but what are you going to spend it on? Like, is that all going to, marketing, or is it all going to team or whatever it is? But when it's like, hey, this is the salary I want to give myself, it becomes much more powerful, and you're more motivated every day to get up and make that plan and execute it.
Totally.
Love that. And then I did have one more question. Let me think of it here. Yeah. So if what would you tell someone that's on the fence about working with OrthoPatients? And this is actually, let's get to that question one more after this one. So in your first year, I've been curious because I've talked to a lot of startups. Like, I think a lot of people find us, like orthodontists, our ads kind of reach them towards the end of residency, or like as they're being an associate and they're looking to start their own practice. And they're like, yeah, I want to do this, but like budget's really, really tight and I'm not really sure. And I tell them the price and they're like, I don't think so. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know if this is the best place for you to be putting your money right now either. So what would you tell someone, especially in that first like ramping up phase? What should they be spending their attention on most, and their money as well?
I mean, I think systems, you have to bring in new patients. But one of my hesitations too with marketing is that fear that, like, okay, I'm actually going to get that phone to ring by doing whatever I'm going to do, and then we're going to botch it, right? Or we're not, like, the team members aren't trained to handle the call or follow up the lead. And it's not like, doesn't mean you're going to ruin everyone. And some calls that you handle correct are better than no calls. But I had that tipping point where I was kind of like, okay, at some point, like, you need to learn on the go, but you also have to have systems in place and like know how you answer calls, how you schedule, how, like, have verbiage, have scripts, have a way to, so that you're not, because what you don't want to do is spend a lot of money on marketing when your revenues are small and your cash flow is limited. And then you're not maximizing that return on investment. So that was really, really, I think I'd struggled with that for years in terms of like, okay, my team is like still training certain things, or I need a new team member in this role. And I was worried that I was going to invest this money and then not maximize it. And you can't let that cripple you where you're like, I'm never going to be ready, because you're never going to be perfect. And there's always going to be growth for team members. And so at some point I took the plunge and I was like in a better spot. I had some, established team members that knew how to handle it, how to bring them in, how to have a good experience from the first phone call or the first reply to that lead all the way up to like getting them into treatment. Because if you mess that up, I mean, I've had people call, we missed their call, or we call them like an hour later, like, already have another consult somewhere. Like, people are not necessarily like, unless they're like, hey, my brother went to you and he said you're the best in the whole plant, I'm not going to go anywhere else. That's a great lead, but that's not all leads. Now with online presence in general, They're going
Yes.
to look at your reviews, but we have, 4.9 rating on Google with 100 reviews, but so do like 5 other offices within 5 miles of us. And so
Yeah.
you need that to at least vet that you're legit so they can consider you, but they might call 3 of you guys in a row. And if you don't answer the phone or you don't answer it correctly, um, they don't feel that vibe. So I think that's a big part of it, is like, get your systems in order, um, and prioritize like how you want to build your practice. But I just think inevitably, like, online is just online presence, whether it's organic or paid, like, you have to have that, because
Yeah.
at some point, even if they don't start with you today, like, they're gonna keep seeing you, whether you're just being active and posting. And if you have time, like, maybe if you can't invest in an agency, like, if you have the time to do it and learn about it, and I mean, you can read 100 web pages about how to do this, some of this stuff, and maybe it's not what you do best, and that's why there's people who do it for a living and
Mhm.
do a good job. But I mean, just get comfortable with it, but find a way to streamline so that you're not wasting those opportunities.
Love it. So you've got to kind of have a team, a practice that can handle the marketing before you start spending on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Really good. And I couldn't agree more. I love that everything you've said today has come from, it's obvious it's just from personal experience. Like there's there's no
Yeah.
course you can take on how to be the most
Hard
successful.
knocks, man. That's it.
Yeah, yeah. The school of hard knocks. I love it. Well, cool. Yeah, this the last question then. If someone was on the fence about working with OrthoPatients, what would you tell them?
I mean, if nothing else, just try it. Like, I don't know if every market's the same and every person's experience will be the same. I've had like a 7-fold ROI, which is, I
Yeah.
think, really good in any kind of marketing, from all the articles I've read and podcasts I've heard. Like, now I've had other people pitch me or talk to me even after we work together. I still
Mhm.
take calls, but I don't take them very seriously anymore. So you'll know that. But and I've people tell me, here's what we do, and we can get a 3-fold ROI. I'm like, well, I'm already getting 7-fold ROI, and we have a system in place. And I mean, you guys are really good as far as working with people.
Mhm.
During COVID, you guys like helped me split up my payment just to like help the cash flow while we were closed. I mean, so
Yeah.
just from a customer service standpoint, you guys are cool. You respond really well. It feels really personal. But I mean, just investment wise, it's been really good. So
Yeah.
worst case scenario, it's not as good for you and it's not a good fit. I'm sure not everybody meshes, but for our market at least, and for the strategy you guys have put in place for our area, it's been really successful with patients. So
Love it.
I'm
And
a
that,
I'm a fan.
yeah, that's where I was. I remember I took a phone call in the middle of COVID last year and I was just like, look, it might work, it might not. And it works, 89% of the time, like everybody's super excited about how it works, but some markets are just really tough. And if somebody tells you that it's not tough and they can get you a 10x ROI and it doesn't matter, they're lying.
Yeah.
I've loved that it's worked with your market. And that's, I mean, it's just, I can't tell you how happy I am. That story you said about like snatching that console or that start out of
Yeah.
just from the Facebook ad, and then all the brand recognition you've gotten, that's meaningful in the long term for me as a business owner, for you, for
Totally.
your team. And so anyways, just thanks so much. You've been awesome to work with, and thanks for
Yeah,
helping
man.
on this call today.
Thank you guys, man. It's been great.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much.